The final reckoning in lives lost to the awesome force of flash floods in southeastern Spain may be some way off. So far, the body count stands at 158, almost all from the region of Valencia. After a crisis cabinet meeting, one Spanish government minister said dozens and dozens of people are still missing. The downing of mobile phone masts may explain some of that anxiety. But the receding waters have revealed bodies trapped and drowned inside their cars. Such was the speed that the floods engulfed the narrow streets of small Spanish towns. Some survivors say the tsunami-sized torrents of mud and water appeared out of nowhere within 10 minutes.
This was how a flood was to be handled. A ravine, a channel that could tame nature and get water safely to the sea. On Tuesday night, nature had other ideas. 3 of the 4 bridges simply swept away, water surging 2 to 3 meters above the banks. Cars were tossed aside like toys, dumped even onto railway lines. And all with such speed that people, many on the streets on their way home from work, had little chance.
Sort of ocean came here and everything was underwater. Everything suddenly, in 10 minutes, all the town was absolutely full of water. I mean, I'm afraid because I'm alive, but I don't have food. I don't have water. I don't have electricity. I mean, I have a family.
We found Elena and her husband Ismail beginning to clear up outside their home, just a few meters from where the river burst. Elena showed me how they fled up their front steps, only to find the water rushing in to waist height after them. The trauma of the next few hours is still with her. My son couldn't get to us, she said. I can't talk. It was a terrible catastrophe. On a nearby street, it wasn't just cars that were no match for the torrents of water. Solid brickwork was brought down too. Without being here at the time, it's almost impossible to conceive of the force of water that came down this street. Locals talk about it as a tsunami, and when you see what happened, when the water had nowhere else to go, simply smashed everything into the end of this street, they weren't exaggerating. The irony, of course, is that this sort of storm is not unusual here at this time of year. They thought they were resilient to it. It turned out they simply weren't. A local supermarket, still awash with mud and debris, opened its doors this morning and told people to take what they need. For years, experts have warned that freak weather was going to get more frequent and more intense. It has. If Europeans believe their modern societies can easily withstand such events, then recent storms in Central Europe and now southern Spain may demand a serious rethink. James Mates, News at 10, Valencia, Spain.
Well, as James was saying, such weather is getting more frequent and intense. Research out today explains why that might be. And Martin is here to explain. Martin.
Yeah, Kamal, I mean, this devastation is the result of the worst, heaviest rain Spain has seen for 28 years. And I think satellite images give us the best perspective. This was earlier this month, and then fast forward and now look at the scale of the flooding. In fact, the town of Chiva had nearly half a metre of rainfall in just 8 hours. That's more than they normally get in an entire year. And if it feels like weather is becoming more extreme, more regularly, well, you're not wrong. Whilst it's very difficult to say climate change is solely responsible for any one storm, drought or heatwave, scientists from Imperial College London found the top 10 deadliest weather events of the last 20 years were all made worse by global warming. Take, for example, Cyclone Nargis, which killed 138,000 people in Myanmar. Research found climate change made winds there 18% stronger. Then you've got rainfall which caused Storm Daniel's deadly floods in Libya last year, and that was 50% more intense as a result of climate change and 50 times more likely. 12,000 people there died. Finally, the European heatwave 2 years ago saw UK temperatures breach 40 degrees Celsius for the first time and 55,000 people die across Europe. The report's author says climate change made the record-breaking heat 10 times more likely and boosted UK temperatures by 4 degrees.
Climate change is not something that's happening sometime in the future. Even in rich countries like in Europe and in the US, people die and lose their lives and livelihoods in extreme weather events.
And the important thing about this is it's all happening whilst average temperatures are currently 1.3 degrees above pre-industrial levels. Now, the target is to cap that rise to 1.5 degrees, but we're not on track at the moment. In fact, the current trajectory, the UN says, is we could hit 3.1 degrees of warming by the end of the century. And Kamal, that is something that the Secretary-General says would be, quite simply,